All right, so have you ever wondered what happens to a political foundation when, its big name kind of faces a major setback?
Hmm. Interesting question.
Well, today we're going to be looking into that. We're taking a deep dive into the Clinton Foundation's finances after, Hillary Clinton's 2016 election loss.
Ah, I see where we're going with this.
Exactly. And we've got this really interesting audio clip to help us out. It's called, After Losing the Election Badly, the Clintons Got the Worst News of Their Lives Today. Catchy title.
Oh, yeah. Definitely grabs your attention.
It's from Gary Franchi over at the Next News Network. And let me tell you, the numbers in this thing, well, they paint a pretty wild picture.
Oh, yeah. Do tell.
Well, we're talking about a serious shift in the financial landscape for the foundation, especially when it comes to donations.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Just how drastic are we talking here?
So get this. In 2014, the Clinton Foundation brought in a whopping $172 million in donations.
Wow, that's a serious chunk of change.
Right. But then just a year later, that number absolutely tanks
Yeah.
down to a measly 18 million.
Whoa, that's a huge drop. Like, what could even explain that?
Well, our source seems to think it's because people weren't lining up to, and I'm quoting here, buy favors anymore after the election.
Buying favors. Now, that's a loaded phrase.
It is, right. So what do you think? Is that just like cynical oversimplification, or could there be some truth to that?
It's definitely provocative. I mean, buying favors, that might be a little too simplistic, but it does make you wonder about why people donate in the first place, right? Like, what are their motivations?
Yeah, your point.
I mean, think about it. When a politician loses an election, their influence kind of takes a hit, right?
Yeah.
And that can definitely affect how much people are willing to donate.
Totally. Like, why give money if you don't think you're going to get anything out of it?
Exactly. It's all about perceived influence and access.
That makes a lot of sense. It'd be really interesting to see how this drop in donations for the Clintons compares to other political foundations. Like, do they all see this kind of thing after an election loss?
Yeah, that's a great point. Looking at historical trends would give us a much better understanding of whether this is just a Clinton thing or a larger pattern in politics.
It's all about context.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of interesting financial shifts, the source also pointed out a pretty steep decline in speaking fees for the Clintons, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they went from raking in $3.6 million in speaking fees in 2014 to a comparatively tiny $357,500 in 2015.
Huh. That's a big difference.
Right. So I'm thinking, speaking engagements, those are usually a pretty reliable way for political figures to keep making money, especially after they've left office.
Yeah, it's a way to stay in the public eye, share their expertise, network.
Yeah, and of course make some serious cash.
Yeah.
But what happens when you're not in a position of power anymore? Do those lucrative speaking gigs just dry up?
Well, it's certainly possible. You have to think about it from the perspective of the people paying for those speeches. They're often looking for insights, access, maybe even a little bit of influence.
I see what you're saying.
And after an election loss, well, the perceived value of those insights might diminish.
Yeah, you're not the hot ticket item anymore.
Exactly.
Okay, but there's another layer to this whole story that we really can't ignore. The FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
Our source calls it an intensive investigation, which sounds pretty serious, right?
Yeah, it definitely had people talking.
Can you give us a little more background on this? Like, what was it all about?
Well, the FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation actually started back in 2015.
Oh, wow, so even before the election.
Yeah, and it went on even after the election in 2016. It focused on some allegations of improper financial dealings and potential conflicts of interest, mainly stemming from Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State.
Interesting. The source mentions that this investigation was still going on while this audio was being recorded, so that means it was happening after the election, too. Did anything actually come of it? Was there any kind of resolution?
Well, the investigation was eventually closed in 2016, and no charges were ever filed.
Oh, wow. So it just ended.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that this whole thing was incredibly public.
Oh, yeah. It was all over the news.
Exactly. It got really politicized, with different sides interpreting the evidence in completely different ways.
Yeah, it definitely felt like people had already made up their minds about it before it was even over.
Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, we want to emphasize that we're not trying to endorse any particular viewpoint here.
Right. We're just laying out the facts as objectively as we can.
Exactly. Our goal is to give you the context and the information so you can form your own conclusions.
Okay, so let's talk about maybe the most explosive claim in this whole audio clip. the allegation that the Clinton Foundation sold Russia our uranium.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious accusation.
Right. I mean, that definitely raised some eyebrows when I first heard it. So can you break this down for us? Like, where did this claim even come from, and is there any truth to it?
So this claim actually goes back to a really complex series of events involving a Canadian mining company called Uranium One. They were sold to a Russian state-owned company, Rosatom, back in 2010.
Okay, so there was a uranium deal, but what does that have to do with the Clinton Foundation?
Well, the allegation, which has been circulating for years, is that Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State at the time, used her position to approve this Uranium One deal,
Okay.
and that she did it in exchange for donations to the Clinton Foundation. Basically, it's implying a quid pro quo situation.
So they're saying that there's a direct link between the uranium deal and donations to the foundation.
Exactly. But it's really important to note that this claim has been debunked, and I mean thoroughly debunked, by fact-checking organizations and investigative journalists. There's just no evidence to suggest that Clinton acted improperly or that she had any undue influence on the approval process.
Oh, wow. So this whole selling uranium claim is basically just a conspiracy theory.
Pretty much. And it just goes to show how important it is to be critical of the information you come across, especially when it comes to these kinds of complex geopolitical issues.
Yeah, you can't just believe everything you hear. You have to look at the facts and the evidence.
Absolutely.
So speaking of political maneuvering, our source also throws out some speculation about the future of the Clinton Foundation. He seems to think that Chelsea Clinton might be used as a kind of puppet to keep the donations flowing if she decides to run for office.
Interesting. Well, it's true that Chelsea Clinton has become more involved in the foundation lately, and there's been a lot of talk about her possibly going into politics. But whether she'll actually follow in her parents' footsteps and whether they would try to use her like that, that's pure speculation at this point.
Yeah, it's way too early to say what her political future holds.
Right, and it's important to remember that she's a very capable person who has achieved a lot on her own. She's not just defined by her parents.
Absolutely. But, you know, even the speculation itself is kind of interesting, right? It makes you think about how political legacies get passed down through generations.
Yeah, good point. Like, how much influence do families have in politics, and how do the children of famous politicians deal with those expectations and legacies?
Yeah, it must be tough to try and make your own mark when you're constantly being compared to your parents.
Yeah, especially when your parents are as well known and as scrutinized as the Clintons.
For sure. So it looks like the Clinton Foundation, much like the political landscape itself, is in a pretty interesting state of flux right now. We've got this dramatic decline in donations, the FBI investigation that ultimately led to nothing, and all these swirling accusations and speculations.
Yeah, it's a really complex situation with a lot of moving parts.
It is.
Yeah.
So what stands out to you the most from everything we've learned so far about the Clinton Foundation's finances?
That's a tough one. You know, for me, I think it's the intersection of politics, money, and public perception that I find the most fascinating.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Like, it's so clear that a change in political fortune can have a huge impact on an organization's entire financial landscape. And public perception, well, that plays a huge role in shaping both donations and opportunities.
That's a really good point. It highlights how interconnected all these systems really are.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder about the role of these kinds of political foundations in a democracy.
Exactly. Like, how much influence should they have? How transparent should their operations be?
Right. Those are some pretty big questions.
They are. And they're questions that are worth thinking about.
Well, I don't know about you, but that buying favors comment from the source really got me thinking.
Yeah, me too. It brings up some important ethical and legal questions about the role of money in politics.
Right. Like, where do we draw the line between legitimate political support and just straight up buying influence?
It's a really tough question, and even if we ignore the legal stuff for a second, there's still the issue of how it looks to the public.
Oh, absolutely. Like, when people see huge amounts of money flowing into politics, it's natural to wonder what those donors are getting in return.
Yeah, and that kind of cynicism can really damage people's trust in the whole system.
Exactly. So transparency and accountability are super important, especially for organizations that are operating in the political sphere.
I couldn't agree more. But before we get too deep into that, let's take a closer look at how the FBI investigation might have impacted the Clinton Foundation.
Oh, yeah, good idea. Like, did it hurt their reputation? Did it scare away donors?
Exactly. That's what we'll be diving into in part 2 of our deep dives. You know, even though the FBI investigation didn't find anything that led to charges, Just having that cloud of suspicion hanging over you, that can really stick around,
Oh, yeah, totally. It makes you think about the long-term damage something like that could do to an organization.
Mm.
Like, did the Clinton Foundation lose credibility with donors? Did they have trouble finding partners after that?
Those are really good questions. I mean, you'd have to think that dealing with an FBI investigation, especially one that got so much attention, well, that's got to take a toll.
Yeah, I bet it was a huge distraction.
Right. And not just that, it probably made some people think twice about working with
And
them.
like this ripple effect, right?
Ex-
Even if they're cleared of any wrongdoing, their reputation could be tarnished.
Absolutely. It's a tough situation. You're trying to do good work, but this investigation creates all these questions and doubts.
Yeah, it's like you're guilty until proven innocent, even though it's supposed to be the other way around.
Exactly. And that can be really damaging, especially for an organization that relies on public trust.
It really highlights how important transparency and good governance are for any organization.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in the public eye, you got to be squeaky clean.
No doubt about it. Now, going back to that buying favors comment for a second, I think it's helpful to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture of political donations.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, we all know that money plays a big role in politics. The relationship between donors and politicians is, well, it's complicated.
It's a tricky subject. Some people think that donating to political campaigns is just a way for rich people and corporations to buy influence,
Yeah.
while others see it as a form of free speech, a way for people to support the causes they care about.
Right. And both sides have valid points. It's definitely a nuanced issue.
It is, and it's not like this is a new debate either, right? People have been arguing about this for decades.
Exactly. And there are rules, of course, about how much money people can donate, but there are always loopholes.
Yeah, people always seem to find ways around the rules.
It's true. And sometimes it's hard to tell where the line is. Like when does political support crock over into something that looks more like, well, buying influence?
Yeah, it can get pretty blurry.
For sure. But even if we ignore the legal and ethical side of things for a minute, there's still the question of how all this looks to the average person.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
if you see all these big donations going to politicians, it's easy to think, okay, what are they getting in return for all that money?
Exactly.
Right.
And that kind of cynicism can be really corrosive. It can make people lose faith in the whole political system.
Totally. Like, they start to think that politicians are only looking out for their donors, not for the people they're supposed to represent.
Yeah. And when that happens, it's hard to get people engaged and involved in the process.
Which is a big problem for democracy, right?
Absolutely. That's why transparency is so important. If people can see where the money's coming from and where it's going, it helps to build trust.
So, speaking of transparency, what do you think about the Clinton Foundation's efforts to address those concerns? I mean, they've been criticized for not being transparent enough, but they have made some changes to be more open, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. After getting a lot of pushback, they actually implemented some stricter rules about disclosing their donors and their financial activities.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they've also scaled back some of their operations.
Interesting.
It seems like they're trying to streamline things a bit, maybe to reduce the potential for conflicts of interest.
Okay, so they're definitely trying to adjust to the changing landscape and address the criticisms that have been thrown their way.
It looks that way. It'll be interesting to see if these changes make a difference in the long run.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens next.
Yeah.
It seems like the Clinton Foundation has been through a lot, from the political attacks to the scrutiny of their finances.
They have. And, they've also achieved some really good things. They have a long history of doing important work all over the world, and they have a lot of supporters.
They do. It'll be interesting to see how they move forward from here. What role will they play in the future? Will they be able to overcome these challenges and continue making a positive impact?
Yeah, those are the big questions.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, let's circle back to the source's comment about Chelsea Clinton and her possible political ambitions. What do you think about that? Do you think she's going to follow in her parents' footsteps?
It's definitely possible. We see it all the time, right? Kids of famous politicians going into politics themselves.
Oh yeah, like the Bush family, the Kennedys. It's a pretty common thing.
Exactly. But, Chelsea Clinton's her own person. She's built a successful career. She's got her own experiences. If she decides to run for office, it'll be her choice. It won't be because of her parents.
Right, she's not just living in their shadow. She's made a name for herself.
Exactly. And it's worth noting that she's been playing a bigger role in the Clinton Foundation lately. It seems like she's really interested in the work they're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just about politics for her. She genuinely cares about the issues the foundation is addressing.
It seems that way. But let's be real, if she does decide to run for office, she's going to be constantly compared to her parents.
Oh, absolutely. There's no escaping that.
The Clinton name carries a lot of weight, both good and bad. It comes with baggage, you know?
Yeah, a lot of baggage. I can't even imagine what it's like to grow up with that kind of pressure and scrutiny.
It's definitely a unique situation, and it makes you think about those family legacies in politics, you know? Like, how much does a name really matter? Can someone really carve out their own path when they come from a family like that?
Those are some deep questions.
They are, and they're questions that Chelsea Clinton will probably have to wrestle with if she decides to enter the political arena.
It's a fascinating dynamic to watch.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Clintons, right? We see these political dynasties all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds us that politics isn't just about ideas and policies. It's also about personalities, relationships, and the stories we tell about power.
That's a great way to put it. And it brings us back to the Clinton Foundation and their future. I mean, they've been through a lot, but they're still here.
They are. It's kind of amazing, right? They've managed to weather all these storms.
So what do you think? What's next for the Clinton Foundation? Can they stay relevant in a world that's constantly changing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think the answer depends on a few things. Can they adapt to the political landscape? Can they be transparent and accountable? And most importantly, can they show that they're making a real difference in the world?
Yeah, those are the key ingredients.
They are. At the end of the day, their legacy won't be defined by the controversies, but by the impact they have.
I think that's a great place to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive. It's easy to get kind of caught up in all the political drama around the Clinton Foundation.
For sure.
But, at the end of the day, it's an organization that's, well, trying to do some good in the world.
Right, absolutely.
And they've actually been involved in some pretty amazing projects,
Oh, yeah, they have.
like expanding access to HIV/AIDS treatment,
Mm-hmm.
especially in developing countries,
Yeah, that's a big one.
and promoting economic development
Yep.
and working to empower women and girls.
It's a pretty impressive track record.
It really is.
Yeah.
They've been working on all these super important issues all over the world.
Yeah, their work really spans continents.
It does. And I know there's been a lot of debate about, how effective they are and all that.
Right, of course.
But you can't deny that they've been a part of trying to solve some of the biggest problems facing the world.
Absolutely. They've been a key player in a lot of global initiatives.
And I think that's something it's easy to forget when you're focused on all the controversies.
Oh, yeah, it's easy to lose sight of the big picture.
Still, at the end of the day, they're out there trying to make a difference.
Right, and I think it's actually pretty remarkable that they've kept going despite all the challenges they faced.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they've had to deal with political attacks, financial scrutiny, you name it.
And they've adapted their strategies along the way, too.
You have. That kind of resilience is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. It shows that they're willing to learn and grow,
Which is so important for any organization.
especially one that's working in such a, well, kind of chaotic environment.
Definitely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you hope our listeners take away from our conversation?
That's a good question.
Like, what's the one thing you want them to remember?
I think it's really important to remember that the Clinton Foundation sits at this really fascinating intersection.
Okay, I like where this is going.
It's the intersection of power, philanthropy, and public perception. And sometimes those things work together, and sometimes they clash. But it's always complicated.
That's a great way to put it. It really highlights the complexities of these kinds of political foundations, right?
Exactly. And I hope our listeners will walk away with a better understanding of that, but also with a sense of, a sense of empowerment, maybe.
What do you mean?
Well, like, we've presented all this information, all these different perspectives,
Right.
but now it's up to our listeners to do their own digging, to explore these issues and form their own opinions.
Yes, that's what we want, informed citizens.
Exactly. Because the more we all understand about how things work
The better equipped we are to make good decisions.
and hold our leaders accountable.
Absolutely. Well said.
Well, this deep dive into the Clinton Foundation has been quite a journey,
It has.
and we really appreciate you joining us for it.
Yes. Thank you all for listening.
And as always, keep asking questions, stay curious.
And never stop learning.